off we go with the answers for the proportion problems. So question 1 is all about a recipe, and we're told that we've got the ingredients to make 8 pancakes. That's important. And we've got milk, egg, flour and butter. Jacob makes 24 pancakes. So the first thing we need to do is figure out how do we turn this recipe, which makes 8, into a recipe that makes 24. And if we can figure out the connection between 8 and 24, then we know what to do to all the ingredients. Now, those of you that know your times tables know that there are 3 8s in 24, so we multiply by 3. And if you weren't sure, then what you could do is you could write the 8 times table down the side of the page. 8, 16, 24, and you can see there it is there. Now, milk. To make 8 pancakes, it needs 300 millilitres of milk. So we times that by 3, and 300 times 3 is 900. So that's the answer for part 1. So the answer is 900 millilitres. Now, part B. Kathy makes 12 pancakes. Work out how much flour she needs. So the trouble with 12 is that you can't go straight there from 8, but hang on, if we went to 24, we could halve it to get to 12, couldn't we? So to go from 24 to 12, we halve it. Now, that's telling us how to turn an 8 pancake recipe into a 12 pancake recipe. First we turn it into 24 and then we turn it into 12. So let's go for it. So it's the flour. So first we're going to times the flour by 3. So 120 times 3, that's 360. So there we go. So it's 360 grams. And then we divide by 2. 360 divided by 2 is 180 grams. So that's how much flour she needs. Now, just notice for a moment before we move on to the next question how I've laid my question out. This is the 8 pancake recipe here, and I've done it in a column here because over here I've got my 24 pancake recipe, and finally I've got my 12 pancake recipe, and you can see that I've written down how to move between them in between. So you should be looking at that and you should see there's 3 columns, and it's very clear how to go from one column to the next. Just before we finish, there would be another way to get from 8 to 12. We could have taken our 8, we could have halved it to get to 4, and then we could have times it by 3 to get to 12. But since we had the 24, it was more convenient. Okay, question number 2. Julie buys 19 identical calculators. The cost is £143.64. Work out the total cost of 31. So this is very clearly a calculator problem. How do I know? Well, the numbers are really horrible. So we've got calculators and we've got the cost. So we know that 19 calculators costs £143.64. Now, we want to do 31 calculators. Unfortunately, there isn't a nice way to turn 19 into 31. If this was 10 and this was 20, you can see you can double it. So we need to go to something else in between. So we're going to go to 1. And this is called going through 1. It's quite a useful trick. Those of you that I teach will have seen it before. So we're going to start off by going from 19 to 1. And to do that, you divide it by 19. Whatever this is, you divide by it. We do the same thing over here. And no, I'm not expecting you to do that without a calculator. £143.64 divided by 19 gives you £7.56. And this is the sort of numbers you'd use in real life, and this is what you would do if you wanted to work something like this out. Now, we've got what one calculator costs. Now we can do 31 calculators very easily. We just times it by 31. And so if we do £7.56, so £7.56 times by 31 it's going to cost you £234.36, which just goes to show you that calculators are jolly expensive. So £234.36. There we go. Question 3. The graph can be used for changing between miles and kilometres. Miles is at the bottom here. Always worth just having a quick look. Kilometres is up the side. Use the graph to change miles to kilometres. So, where are we? 12 miles. So, looking at the scale, it's 12 miles. We just check we're definitely on 12 miles. We draw a line, and you would use a ruler if you are sensible. Clearly I'm not sensible, so I'm not using a ruler, and you can see there it's going to go all the way across there, and be about there, wasn't it? Kind of just up a bit. Okay, now this is a bit you've got to be really careful, because they're testing you on can you read a scale. So there's 15, there's 20. Let's count each box: 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So each box is worth 1, and I would say that's closer to the 19 box. In fact, I'd even go as far as say it's 19.5. So 19.5. Don't be afraid of being as accurate as you can when you're reading a graph. Now, use the graph to change 10 kilometres into miles. So it's just about the way around, isn't it? So 10 kilometres, there's 10 kilometres. Just make sure, 10 kilometres. So we get our ruler and we draw a line across, and then we go down. Okay, and you can see that that's going to be somewhere just past 6. Now again, look at this horrible scale. 6 and 8, halfway in between must be 7, and halfway in between is going to be right there. So I would be looking at, that's 7 there. Always worth marking some missing numbers on if they're on, because the number of people that misread scales like this, it's a huge problem. It looks to me like there's about 6.4, I would say, something like that. Just before halfway, isn't it? There we go. Now, Matthew travelled 100 miles, change 100 miles to kilometres. So this is a sort of fairly normal thing to do. You can see a problem with 100 miles is it doesn't go up to 100 miles. So we've got several choices. We could use 10 miles or we could use 20 miles. I'm going to use 20 miles. Why? Because it gives me a nice place. So there's the 20 miles, and if you go across there, it comes out there, and that's 32. So we've got miles and kilometres, and 20 miles is equal to 32 kilometres. And I want 100 miles. I can go from 20 to 100 straight away. I can times it by 5. And 32 times 5 is 160, I believe. 32 times, there we go, 160 kilometres. And I'd just like to draw your attention to this pattern here, this way I've written it down. Notice I've got my miles column, and then I've got my kilometres column. And just go back to the last question and have a look at this one here, the calculators and pounds. So I've got my calculators column, and I've got my cost column. And this is a pattern which is quite a useful pattern for working things out when they're in proportion, that you might want to try and use yourself. Okay, let's finish off. A family of 2 adults and 3 children went on holiday to Miami. They travelled by plane, blah de blah. Right, adult plane tickets cost that much each. Pardon me. And the child tickets cost that much each. So you've got a question like this, lots of words, potentially a little bit confusing. Let's look for the obvious things. So we've got 2 adults, so that's 2 times 459. And 2 times 459 comes out to be 918. And I'm going to write down what that is. That's 2 adults. And now the children. There's 3 children, so it's 3 lots of 289. And 3 lots of 289, that comes to 867, and I'm going to write down what that is. If you can write down what your numbers mean, then you're a long way towards understanding what you're doing. Now it says total cost, so I've got to add them up. So 867 add 918 gives me 1,785, and that's how many pounds. That's my total cost there. Let's write it down here, 1,785. Now, the family visited a theme park. They paid a total of $322 to go in, and the exchange rate was £1 is $1.84. So we've got pounds and we've got dollars, and we know this is where we start. This is the link between the two. £1 is $1.84, and we want to know what $322 is, and 322 is going to go here. Now, there's several ways you could do this. I'm just going to stick with a way that lines up with what we did before. I'm going to look for the vertical pattern, so I'm going to go down. So $1.84 doesn't go into 322 very nicely, but I can turn it into $1 by dividing it by 184. So that's what I'm going to do over here. And 1 divided by, that's there, 1 divided by the $1.84 is not a very nice number. My calculator says it's 0.54348. And then I'm going to turn the 1 into the 322 by timesing it by 322. The same thing over here. And if I times it by 322, then I get 175 point lots of things, so I'm just going to put naught there. So £175. Now there is one other way to do this. I'm just going to show you that. I showed you this way really because I've got my pounds column and I've got my dollars column, and you can see it's exactly the same as the other questions. It's just pounds and dollars. But here's the other way of doing it. I could look at this. £1 is $1.84, and you can see that to go this way you would times it by 184, because 1 times 184 is that. So to go the other way, you divide by 184. So this is going from pounds to dollars, this is going from dollars to pounds. Well, I've got dollars, so I do it 322, and I go from dollars to pounds. I divide by 184. And when you do that, 322 divided by $1.84, unsurprisingly you get 175, which is of course the answer. So that's the other way of doing it. You can take your pick.